Good day, I'm Coach Jasper, and now I will discuss to you the history of volleyball. Before I proceed to the history of volleyball, I will give a short content what volleyball is all about. Volleyball is a game played by two teams, usually of 6 players on a side, in which the player use their hands to bat a ball back and forth over a high net, trying to make the ball touch the court within the opponent's playing area before it can be returned. To prevent this, a player on the opposing team bats the ball up and toward a teammate before it touches the court surface. The teammate may be volley it back across the net or bat it to the third team who volleys it across the net. A team is allowed only 3 touches of the ball before it must be returned over the net. History of volleyball. Volleyball was invented in 1895 by William G. Morgan, physical director of the Young Men's Christian Association's YMCA in Holyoke, Massachusetts. It was designed as an indoor sports for businessmen who found the new game of basketball too vigorous. Morgan called the sports mintonet until a professor from Springfield College in Massachusetts noted the volleying nature of play and proposed the name of volleyball. The original rules were written by Morgan and printed in the first editions of the official handbook of the Athletic League of the Young Men's Christian Associations of North America in the year 1897. The game soon proved to have wide appeal for both sexes in school, playgrounds, the armed forces, and the other organizations in the United States, and it was subsequently introduced to the other country. In the year 1916, rules were issued jointly by the YMCA and the National Collegiate Athletic Associations, the NCAA. The first nationwide tournament in the United States was conducted by the National YMCA Physical Education Committee in New York City in the year 1922. The United States Volleyball Associations, the USVVA, was formed in 1928 and recognized as the rules-making governing body in the United States. From 1928, the USVVA, now known as the USA Volleyball, the USAV, has conducted an annual national men's and seniors men's age 35 and older volleyball championship. Except during 1944 and 1945, its women's divisions was started in 1949. And a seniors women's divisions age 30 and older was added in 1977. Other national events in the United States are conducted by member groups of the USV such as the YMCA and the NCAA. Volleyball was introduced into Europe by American troops during World War I, when national organizations were formed. The Fédération Internationale de Volleyball (FIVB) was organized in Paris in 1947 and moved to Lausanne, Switzerland in the year 1984. The USVBA was one of the 13 charter members of the FIVB, whose membership grew to more than 210 member countries by the late 20th century. International volleyball competition began in 1913 with the first Far East Games in Manila. During earliest 1900s, and continuing until after World War II, volleyball in Asia was played in a large court with a lower net and 9 players on a team. The FIVB sponsored World Volleyball Championship for men only in 1949, both men and women in 1952 and succeeding year, led to acceptance of standardized playing rules of officiating. Volleyball became an Olympic sport for both men and women at the 1964 Olympic Games in Tokyo. European Championships were long dominated by Czechoslovakian, Hungarian, Polish, Bulgarian, Romanian, and Soviet, later Russian teams. At the world and Olympic level, Soviet teams have won more than titles, both men's and women's, than those of other nations. Their success are attributed to widespread grassroots interest and well-organized play and instructions at all levels of skills. A highly publicized Japanese women's team, Olympic Championship in 1964, reflected the interests of private industry in sports. Young women working for those sponsoring companies devoted their free time to conditioning, team practice, and competition under expert and demanding coaching. Encouraged by the Japanese Volleyball Associations, this women's team made its mark in international competition, winning the World Championship in 1962, 1966, and 1967, in addition to the 1964 Olympics. At the end of the 20th century, however, the Cuban women's team dominated both the World Championship in the Olympics. The Pan American Games involving South, Central, and North America added volleyball in 1955, and Brazil, Mexico, Canada, Cuba, and the United States are frequent contenders for top honors in Asia. China, Japan, and Korea dominate competition. Volleyball, especially beach volleyball, is played in Australia, New Zealand, and throughout the South Pacific. A 4-year cycle of international volleyball events, recommended by the FIVB, began in 1969 with World Cup Championship, to be held in the year following the Olympic Games. The second year is the World Championship. In the third, the regional events are held, example, European Championship, Asian Championship, African Championship, Pan American Games, and its fourth year, the Olympic Games. Beach volleyball, usually played, as its name implies, on a sand court with 2 players per team, was introduced in California in 1930. The first official beach volleyball tournament was held in 1948 at Will Rogers State Beach in Santa Monica, California, and the first FIVB Sanctions World Championship was held in 1986 at Rio de Janeiro. Beach volleyball was added to the roster of 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta, Georgia. Again, I'm Coach Jasper, and that's all about history of volleyball. Thank you for watching.